Hey everybody, I'm gonna go ahead and kick this off. So as some of you already know who I am, but for the others who don't know, I am Sarah Karthikeyan. I am the General Manager for Strategy and Innovation in the Enterprise Data and Insights team at Chevron. So what that means is I'm responsible for the design and the execution of the enterprise data strategy. I have about 20 years of experience in the energy sector and worked in the data and the AI space predominantly. I'm also a co-chair of the content committee here at WILDA, so a new role, pretty exciting. So I'm very excited about this event. I also want to hear of future topics. So if you have a topic in mind for a future event, it can be technical, it can be leadership focused, just send those our way. You can put that in the chat here today, or you can also contact the WILDA events team directly. So it's my pleasure to kick off today's session on how to build influence at work. So given this is a WILDA event, women leaders, data and AI, I wanted to know how AI defines influence, right? So get it, AI, so ChatGPT. So I asked ChatGPT, okay, what is the definition for influence? And this is what I got. So according to ChatGPT, influence is the capacity to affect others' decisions or the ability to shape actions. Now, everybody here would say, hey, that's the recipe for success at a workplace, right? So that is exactly what we're going to learn a little bit more about today, especially as women leaders who are trying to navigate their careers. In typically male-dominated industries, I think it's important for us to just develop this skill as much as possible for us to be successful. So with that, I'm really looking forward to hearing from our guest speaker, Lorraine Lee, today. So before I formally introduce her, just a few logistics items. We are going to be recording this session and it will be available for you to listen to later as well using our app. Please go ahead and type in your questions just throughout the session. We will get to it at the end. So now more on our speaker. So Lorraine is a top-rated global keynote speaker, a consultant, and an instructor for Stanford Continuing Studies and LinkedIn Learning. She has over 300,000, big number, followers on LinkedIn, and 10 plus years of experience leading editorial teams at top tech firms. Lorraine has worked with clients including Zoom, Cisco, Atlassian, and McKinsey & Company. She was named a top virtual speaker by ReadWrite and was also named a finalist for Global Conference Speaker of the Year by Women Tech. Before starting her own company, Lorraine worked at companies including Prezi, SlideShare, and LinkedIn. Lorraine has been featured in publications including ReadWrite and Entrepreneur. So without further ado, over to you, Lorraine.
Thank you so much, Sarah, and hello, everyone. It is great to see you today. So I'd like to actually dive in right away with a question for all of you. Let me know, why are you here today? What made you decide to join this session? What are you hoping to get out of it? And you can just let me know in the chat, and while you all think through your responses, I'm going to share why I get so passionate talking about influence. So influence to me means being more visible to leadership, and ideally that leads to a promotion or some sort of career advancement down the line. So curious to hear from all of you. Why is influence important to you? Why did you show up to this session today? I'll give it about 30 seconds for people to chime in. Maria wants to drive results in her organization. That is a great reason to influence. Nancy, this topic has come up in WILDA mastermind circles. That's great. One more person, someone else want to chime in? Randy wants to get things down across functions and departments. Perfect. So you've all shared some great examples of what can happen when you influence. For example, you might be seen as more persuasive. Maybe you get promoted and that leads to raises, which is always nice. You maybe want to become a stronger leader through your influence or create better working relationships. Now, put simply, influence is the ability to affect, transform, or sway people or situations. And ideally, we're going to do that in a positive way to help us reach these types of goals here. Now, even with that definition and the one that Sarah shared, I sometimes think influence still is a little bit intangible. So I'm going to make it more tangible for all of us today with something I created called the RAVE model. And it's going to help us learn how we can build influence both virtually and in person. Now, before I get into what the RAVE model is, I want to give a quick introduction of who I am. So my name is Lorraine. It's nice to meet all of you. And I love helping organizations and teams stand out and supercharge their professional presence. Now, when I say professional presence, I mean it in both senses of the word. So how you come across to others and where others come across you. And I really see influence as the intersection of these two things. I'm also a virtual speaker and consultant. Before that, I was the head of editorial at Prezi, which is a presentation platform. I'm a LinkedIn learning instructor, and I was a founding editor at LinkedIn for 6 years, so I continue to be very active on that platform. Now, I hope all of you will connect with me on LinkedIn, and feel free to take screenshots at any point during this session. If you're active on LinkedIn or socials, would love for you to post and tag me, tag Wilda, and we can keep the conversation going even after we have to say bye today. Now, what is this RAVE model exactly? RAVE stands for relationships, appearances, visibility, and expertise. These are the 4 key criteria that can help build your influence, whether you are virtual or in the office, whether you're introverted or extroverted, and whether you're junior or more senior. This is going to give you the tools and frameworks to help you reach your goals that you mentioned earlier in the chat. Now, I want to start off by diving into our relationships here. Relationships are a huge part of influence. Influence in the workplace inherently is going to involve someone else, right? If we want that promotion, if we want others to see us as a leader, there needs to be someone else on the other side. Now, when it comes to building relationships, we want to think about these 2 things: interpersonal communication and building trust. Now, I'm going to start off talking about our communication. We'll talk about 2 aspects to our communication to help us build our influence: managing up and turning off autopilot. Now, we all like to work with and spend time with and advocate for people we actually like and who we think do great work. And focusing on these 2 things will play a big role in helping us become that liked person. So first, let's talk about managing up. Managing up is so important because the more you do it, the more your boss will see your value. If they see your value, they'll be more likely to invest in your growth. They're going to look to you for your input and opinions and really advocate for you. It's also going to help others see you as a leader instead of just a doer. Now, too often people think the manager is the boss, but really you are the boss of your own career and you're going to be your own best advocate. So I want to share some common phrases I see when it comes to managing up and how you might transform these. So the first one here, this is a common one. You go to your manager. There's an issue here. Can you help me? What do you think I should do? Instead, you might say something like, there's an issue here. I recommend doing X. So you're bringing a solution to the table. Instead of saying, yes, I'll do it ASAP, saying yes to whatever project comes your way, you need to be more thoughtful about your time and more strategic with it. So instead, you might change it to something like this. I'm happy to help. I have X, Y, Z on my plate. How would you like me to prioritize? Now, sometimes managing up also means pushing back against your manager. I know this can be uncomfortable for a lot of people, but it's necessary. So perhaps right now you might normally always agree with your boss. Instead, you might change that to, have we also considered X for these 3 reasons? Or perhaps this is one that has happened to me many times. You are sharing a lot of backstory. You worked on the project super hard, so all these details are important to you, but they're really not needed. This backstory is really only going to be interesting to me, and my manager just wants me to get to the point. So instead, we're going to share the main point and message up front, and then share any necessary context after. Now, next, I want to talk about turning off autopilot. So I want to start off with a group activity here. Now, think to your last meeting or your past few meetings. What is typically the first thing you say when you get on a video call or you see someone in the office? So I'm going to give you a few options on the screen. Each is going to have a corresponding emoji, and you can type in that emoji into the chat and we'll see which one is the most popular. So we have, how are you? Give me a thumbs up if that's what you hear usually is the first thing on a call. Maybe someone's asking about the weather. Maybe someone's asking you if they can see your screen, or if they can see your screen. Or maybe you hear something else entirely, and you can also share that in the chat. So let me know, give me a thumbs up, a clap emoji, a smiley, or a heart, depending on which one you hear most often in meetings or in conversations with your colleagues. Okay, Randy's got a thumbs up, a how are you? Melissa has how's the weather? Nancy, thumbs up. Okay, we got looks like mostly thumbs up. Maria's giving us one how's the weather? We have a smiley, can you see my screen? Okay, perfect. So if we're looking at this group here, it looks like mostly thumbs up, right? Now, thumbs up, totally great to ask how are you? However, if you are using any of these regularly without some sort of additional follow-up to build your relationship, they're not going to be the ideal way to start off a call or an in-person conversation. So how about we change those to questions like this? It's so great to see you. It's been a while. I'd love to hear what you're most excited to be working on, instead of how's work been going, busy? Or how are you? Because we always get the same response to that, right? Or what was the highlight of your weekend, instead of how was your weekend? Because when we ask how was your weekend, the answer is always it was good. Or are you watching any interesting shows or reading any interesting books? What do you recommend? Or you might try these. What did you like about the last team check-in? Maybe you don't even ask a question and you just volunteer some information about yourself, which is totally fine as well. So you can let someone know you're going on a trip next week, and that gives people an opening to ask more questions about what the trip's for, what you're going to be doing, and just learn a little bit more about your life. And does anyone watch X? What did you think of the season finale? Now, questions like these here break up the monotony we usually experience when engaging in small talk, and they really awaken the brain out of autopilot, and you start being associated with more positive conversation. And if you can be that person to help turn that autopilot small talk into more interesting conversations where you actually learn a little bit more about each other, you instantly become more memorable, you connect more, you become more likable. All of these things impact your influence. Now, together as a group, I want you all to think about a question you might use on your next call, in your next meeting, when you pass someone in the hall, and share it in the chat right now. So it can be any of these three here, it can be the three I just shared, it can be something completely unrelated to these, something that you came up with yourself, but let me know a question that you can commit to using in your next call to get to know your team a little bit better. Nancy, what was the highlight of your summer? I love that one. Julie, what project are you excited to be working on? And that one's really great too, because they might tell you about something that you had no idea was going on at the company, and maybe it can help you connect the dots a little bit better. Bhavna, I got asked what's good today, which was interesting. I've heard that one in another talk. Sometimes people ask what's good. Shirtina, what's one thing you're going to do differently today? Ooh, to see that these are really good questions. They're making me think of what my answer would be. So these are definitely not autopilot questions. Randy, what's the most interesting thing you learned today? Oh, I love all these questions. And hopefully you all can borrow each other's questions for your next few meetings. Sue, did you read or listen to the latest webinar chat about an article promoted by the company? That's excellent. All right, well, these are wonderful questions and wonderful prompts. So next, I want to talk about one common scenario we see both in person and virtually, and how we can create more influence in those conversations when we can turn off autopilot here. So this is going to be your typical conversation. How are you? I'm good. How are you? And they'll probably respond with good, thanks. So not the ideal scenario. Instead, let's try something like this. How are you? I'm great. We're about to close one of our biggest deals this quarter. I've loved working cross-functionally with the data team on this. You're all the data team, great team. So whoever you're speaking to just learned so much more about you. You're showing that not only are you performing well, you're also a collaborative partner. And some of you might be thinking right now, I don't want to come across like I'm bragging in every conversation or always talking about myself. Very valid concern. My suggestion is to frame things in a way so that you're talking about the team's efforts and showing how you're contributing to the bottom line. And again, this section is called relationships, right? So a big part of this too is if you have a good relationship with someone, they're going to assume good intentions and they're going to take this not in a negative or braggy way, but just be excited and happy for you. Now I want to talk about how to build trust with each other, which I firmly believe is one of the most important pieces to relationship building, and it can be one of the quickest ways to turn a relationship sour. Now, how many of us have been in conversations like this? Can you get this to me by Tuesday? Sure. Tuesday rolls around. Hi there, what's the status of this? Oh, so sorry, I got caught up doing other things. Can I turn this into you later this week? Now, don't get me wrong, things come up, sometimes things slip through the cracks. But if this is a situation that is happening to you all the time, it's time to rethink some things. So instead, can you get this to me by Friday at 5 p.m. Pacific? Sure. Tuesday rolls around. Here's the first part. I'm confirming I'm on the right track. Let me know. Got a thumbs up, you're on the right track. Friday rolls around. Here's the deliverable I promised. So both of these people here are doing a few things really well. So the first person is really clear about what they're asking for. You have the date, the time, even the time zone. The person who's being asked to do the work, instead of waiting till Friday to give the perfect deliverable, they check in earlier. They make sure they're on the right track, they're agile in their work, and they're just checking in. And if I'm the person asking for you to do something, I'm going to feel a little bit more reassured. Okay, they're on the right track, or okay, they're not on the right track. I'm glad to be course corrected. And then, of course, this person turned in the work early, not necessary, but at least you want to turn it in on time. And if something needs to change, you give the other person a heads up. Now, you can bet if I'm the person asking this one here to do something and they deliver on time and they're really on top of things, I'm going to want to keep collaborating with that person. I'm going to want to give them more projects to do. And so this is a really wonderful way to get more visibility within a company. So we have covered 2 ideas of what you can do to build better relationships: interpersonal communication and building trust. So I'd love for you to let me know in the chat, which one do you want to focus on first? And if there's something really specific that resonated with you, let me know what you want to try or what first action you'll take after the session today. So we had interpersonal communication, and then we had building trust. So which one do you think is most important for you to focus on, or which one are you most excited to try first? All right, most people say building trust so far. It's always interesting to see different groups and if there's a common theme within all of that. That's great. Well, building trust, that's one of my favorite ones. So I'm glad all of you, literally all of you. That's amazing. All right, wonderful. Well, it looks like trust is the big winner here. A great area to focus on. So I want to move on to the A, the appearances. Now, appearances are not to be confused with visibility. So appearances is how you look to others. If you look good, you'll feel good. Others are going to view you more favorably. You're just going to appear more confident. So let's take a look at what this entails. Appearances are made up of body language, eye contact, and your face. So we'll start off with body language. Now, these are 2 situations we see often, both on video and in person. Both are not ideal. So I'd like all of us to look at these images as a group. Give me a guess as to, one or both. What are they missing? What's wrong with how they're coming across, either on video or in person, as it pertains to their body language? So what could they improve on? Maybe what's missing from this? What kind of vibe are they giving off? Sue, the female, is not looking too happy. Bhavna, no smile, tensed. Yep. Maria, we got some angry looks here. Crossed hands. Yeah, a few of us are saying guarded and closed off. Yep, with the crossed arms, right? Yeah, these are great guesses. You are all right on the money. So let's look at some ways that we can improve. So that first person, as you all said, looked kind of unfriendly, but there was something else that was missing too: that person's body. So with framing, we want to make sure that we are showing enough of our body so that we can get our hands on camera. When you can get your hands on camera, there are so many wonderful benefits to it. You instantly become more trustworthy. You come across as more personable, warmer, more energetic. So a lot of benefits here to using your hands on camera. Now, the second person, a lot of you pointed this out too, felt a little bit closed off, the arms were crossed. Now, this person here, very different. Chest is open, also using her hands. Now, people are going to be a lot more likely to gravitate to these individuals because people are going to view them more positively. They look more open, more welcoming, and more personable. Now, being open in person is probably going to be a little bit more natural to us because the person is right in front of us. But often where people struggle is with video. So I want us to all work on that right now. For video, you want to make sure that your framing is correct so you can get your hands on screen. So this right here is what I see most often when people are on video. So with this angle, similar to that first image I showed, big head here, way too close. And sometimes the angles are super strange, or I maybe see underneath your chin or up your nose a little bit. And, kudos to you for turning on your camera. It's great to see your face, but this is a little bit too close and actually can be a little bit uncomfortable to the other side. And there's a scientific reason for this. The people skills expert, Vanessa Van Edwards, says that this is because when you are like this on camera, when you are too close to the camera, it replicates what we might feel in person when someone gets in our personal space. Our brain's reaction is to think that this person could harm us. It activates our amygdala. Our amygdala processes fear. And so fear is definitely not a feeling we want to be giving others on a video call. Instead, our video should ideally show our shoulders. We want to show a little bit of our torso, and we want to have a little bit of space above our head. So we still want to take up a majority of the screen and then also be able to move our hands around. When you do this, you're no longer just a floating head. The person on the other side of the video will feel more like you're having an in-person conversation when they see your body movement and hand gestures. Now, time for another group activity. I want us to all check if we have the right distance from the camera. So I'm going to put everyone on gallery mode here so I can see. Please stick out your arm. You'll want about an arm's length of distance from you and the camera. Now, if you have less than an arm's length of distance, you're going to be too close. If it's too far, too much space around you. So about an arm's length of distance is good. And feel free to make adjustments with whatever you have around the house. So you can use books, delivery boxes, laptop stand, doesn't need to be anything fancy. But again, you want to show your torso, be able to put your hands on camera and have a little bit of space above your head. So I'm gonna take a quick look at the group here. Everyone who has their cameras on, thank you. I'll give everyone a second to make a little adjustment if they want to. All right, I hope this is all, all for self-improvement. So I hope none of you are concerned about me calling on anyone. Let's see. All right, I'll start with Julie. So Julie, you're positioned pretty well. You can maybe move your camera a little bit lower down so you have a little bit less space and show a little bit more of your torso. Denise, same with you. You can move your camera down. Sarah as well. So think about 3 to 5 fingers worth of space above your head. So I think a lot of you have a little bit too much space above your head right now. Shartina, same with you. Yep, nice adjustment. Love it. Sue probably can scoot back a little bit. Nancy, you can get rid of some of that space above your head as well and probably move a little bit closer to the camera. Let's see here. Melissa can remove some of the space. Randy, you look pretty good. Maybe a little bit more of your torso would be good. Bhavna, I know you're on your cell phone, so it's a little bit harder. But I see you adjusting a little bit. That's great. And let's see, anyone else have their camera on? No. All right. Well, these are all great adjustments. So again, just keep tweaking. Of course, you can't necessarily all do it right now, but that's generally kind of the spacing you want. So arm's length of distance and the height so that you're getting this part of your body in. So next, I want to talk about the power of eye contact. So one of the best ways that we connect with each other is through eye contact. Now, in person, we look at each other, it releases something called oxytocin. And we also shake people's hands, and that also releases oxytocin when we have that skin-to-skin contact. However, when it comes to eye contact in person, I want you to keep these things in mind. And we don't want to be staring at the other person and giving off this sort of creepy energy, right? So we want to aim to make eye contact for about 80% of the time if you're talking to someone. You're going to want to think about how much you're blinking. If you do it too much, you're going to look anxious. If you're speaking to a group of people, you're going to want to hold eye contact for about 4 to 5 seconds with each person so that everyone feels included. Now, how do we do this virtually? So you should always aim to be looking at the camera or right below it, depending on what your setup is. If you want to boost oxytocin virtually, which is that social bonding hormone, this is going to be one of the main ways that you do it. Now, it is human nature, I understand, to want to look at ourselves to make sure we look okay. Maybe we want to see how we look reacting to what someone said, but really encourage you all to fight this urge and recommend turning off self-view to help with that. Now, I also see a lot of presentations and video calls where people have their camera on one screen and their big monitor over here. And so they're talking because all the content is here. Now, imagine if I was giving this talk and I was just talking like this the whole time and I could see all you, but you're wondering, I'm talking to you, but it also makes it seem like maybe I'm a little bit distracted looking over here versus this with the eye contact. So it does make a big difference when you can make that eye contact. So again, look at the camera, look right below the camera, depending on the height of your camera, and it makes for a much more engaging interaction, and you are seen as more in a more positive light, and people are connecting with you better, again, through that oxytocin release. Now, next, I want to talk about our faces. So we all have lovely faces, but why is it that so many people look like this on video? This is RBF, not the RBF you might be thinking of. This is resting business face, and we see this all the time, especially on video. So we need to remember to smile and almost over emote when we're on camera, especially virtually, because we have this additional barrier of the screen we have to break through. And it really makes a big difference. Like a lot of people, when you see them on camera and they're just like this, you're like, oh, do they even want to be here? Do they want to talk to me? So something I always try to do is, even before the other person joins a call, when I see that their video is loading up, I'll smile. I'll think of a happy memory, something that brings a nice energy to the call. When I started doing keynotes, I was not smiling, and because I was so nervous. Over time, I started smiling and getting more comfortable. And I still remember I did this keynote, and someone in the chat said their favorite part was how I was smiling so much during the presentation. So just know that people notice these things, and it does make a difference. But perhaps more importantly, and a lot of you are doing a good job here, we need to see your face first. And I know it can be really tiring to be on video, and there's Zoom fatigue, video fatigue. That's often due to poorly run meetings, and that's a whole other different talk. But would you rather be talking to initial M and a gray figure this whole time, or would you rather talk to these two lovely people? It really does make a big difference to see your face, especially when we're working remotely. We only have so many touch points in a given day for senior leaders, for peers to see our face and to feel connected with us. So being comfortable on video and showing your video in the first place really gives you that leg up. All right, with that, we have covered appearances. So let me know in the chat, what do you want to focus on as your next step? We talked about body language and framing, talked about eye contact, and we talked about smiling a little bit more. So what is one thing that you might want to try? And what's one thing, feel free to share, what's one thing about your appearance that you think you do well already? And what's one thing that you might want to change moving forward? Bhavna, body framing with the camera, smiling, wonderful. Those are really quick ones to fix. Nice. Sue does eye contact well, but maybe wants to work on body language and smiling a little bit more. Bhavna smiles already. That's great. Shirtina, framing and body language. Oh, Nancy, you changed lighting in the room to be more flattering. Yeah, we didn't talk about lighting today, but that's a really great one. All right, looks like we have some smilers in the group. That's good to see. All right, well, you all touched on wonderful ones to try to work on and improve on. I'm excited to hear what kind of difference it makes. So next up, I want to talk about visibility. Now, as I said before, visibility is different than appearances. Appearances are how you appear to others. Visibility is where you appear. Now, this is going to be important for influence because if you're not in the right places to be seen and recognized, you won't be valued, be as valued as your teammates who are. Now, it's a really unfortunate truth, but out of sight, out of mind does exist, and it's a thing, proximity bias, for example, but we'll make sure that this doesn't happen to you. So visibility includes sharing learnings and wins, being where the conversations happen, and volunteering to present. So let's dive into sharing learnings and wins first. Now, in person, it's much easier to be visible because you are physically there in front of leaders and decision makers. Virtually, it can be a little bit tougher, but it's perfectly achievable. Now, the way we're going to do that is by sharing our learnings and wins by answering these two questions. What did you learn? And how can others apply your learnings to their own work? And how did your work contribute to the company's bottom line and your team's goals? Now, following this format, these 2 questions here will ensure that you're being as helpful as possible and minimize you feel like maybe you're bragging about yourself. This is you helping other people while still showing the work that you did. I know this might feel uncomfortable at first, sharing and talking about ourselves. I know for me, it was super uncomfortable. I would have my managers, as I started wanting to promote my work more, I would have my managers look over my emails to the wider team to make sure I was showing things in the best light. And, this is really a skill that you have to learn. It's not something we just innately know from school. So just know that if you keep at it, this is a really valuable thing to keep doing wherever you are. Now, something else to keep in mind, in addition to sharing these learnings and wins, is where we share them. So I want us to think about expanding beyond our virtual office walls and move into larger team channels. So when you can move into a bigger channel, so maybe instead of editorial, which was my team, I would show my work within the marketing org. Now, when you do this, you get many more eyeballs on your work. People get familiar with your name, who you are, and you get seen by people sometimes who aren't even in your team. So, for example, there might be a senior leaders channel that you could chime in on. So we'll touch on that as well right now. So in a similar vein, you'll want to be where the conversations happen. Now, in my last 2 companies, I published a weekly newsletter. My last company, I called it The Edit. And it was a little bit of work to put it together each week, but it was really valuable because people knew what our team did. They knew how we were contributing to the company. It really gave us a lot of visibility, and it really helped with cross-functional collaboration because I would have actually many data scientists reach out to me and say, oh, I saw you were working on this. Like, did you ever think about reaching out to this person? Or did you know we have this data for you to look through? And engineers would reach out as well, just to chime in with their own opinions. So it's a really wonderful way to kind of get that visibility and also connect with other coworkers as well. Now, we publish this on our company's intranet. At LinkedIn, we publish an email listserv. So, just choose the avenue that will likely get you the most reach. Now, you'll also want to share this type of content in the channels where executives and decision makers are. So if you're not sure what channels those are, it's time to probably ask your manager. It might be a chat group, maybe an email listserv, an internal company board. And honestly, in a virtual world, it's probably best to put it in all of these. My former CEO used to always say things 7 times in 7 different ways for people to finally listen and process what you're saying. We're so distracted virtually, right? So repetition is not a bad thing. So find the channel, find the group, find the email listserv, and make sure that you are repeating your message and you're learning multiple ways. Lastly, you'll want to volunteer to present to gain more influence. Now, presentations and especially public speaking are often many people's worst nightmare. It can trigger flight responses in many of us, and this fear is so prevalent it's even been given a name. It's called glossophobia. And I'm sure many of you have heard that many people say public speaking is even scarier than death. But despite all of this, I cannot emphasize enough what an outsized impact public speaking can have on your career and influence if you can do it well. There's a reason why you get viewed so positively when you can do it well. Public speaking does take work, it takes practice, it's uncomfortable, it's scary for a lot of us. But I promise you, speaking from my own experience, the more you do it, the less scary it becomes, and it really opens the door to so many opportunities. People start turning to you for inward and outward facing initiatives that grow your personal brand in and outside of the company. Now, when I started practicing public speaking, I always was so sweaty, so nervous. I couldn't sleep the night before. I was just a mess. And now here I am getting to talk to all of you, just slightly sweaty, and just, it's really wonderful opportunities open up. So I want to share a few pieces of advice that can help you get started. So you just start small. You don't need to get on the stage at your next offsite and present to hundreds of people. Start off speaking to a group of 2 colleagues, maybe a small team meeting, and then you build up from that. Record yourself. Being able to see yourself, and often we're our own harshest critics, right? But seeing yourself, you're going to be a lot better than you probably think in your head. And you're also going to be able to identify any funny presentation quirks you have. So for example, when I started presenting and I'm standing right now, I would do a lot of this back and forth because I was nervous. And lastly, I want to just make sure that you practice with your friends, practice with your manager, get feedback. This is going to be the fastest way, one of the fastest ways that you can grow and really build that confidence. I just want to remind you all, this is a process. Just be empathetic to yourselves and know that you will keep improving. And on that note, we have covered visibility. So again, what will you all focus on first? You can share your learnings and wins. Maybe you want to be where the conversations happen a little bit more, or maybe you're going to volunteer to present something, maybe your next team meeting, maybe your next all hands. So again, that is share learnings and wins, be where the conversations happen, and volunteering to present. And if any of you are already doing any of these things, very frequently, feel free to share tips and tricks for what has worked well for you. Thank you everyone for your questions. I see them coming in and we'll answer those at the end. Shirtina wants to be where the conversations happen. Great. Shirtina, I'm curious, do you know where they're happening right now? Or do you need to dig in a little bit further? Okay, Sue, also similar. And Maria wants to practice in a mirror sometimes, yeah. Sri Leka, hopefully I'm pronouncing that correctly, but correct me in chat if I'm not. Sounds like you're a great presenter already, so that's wonderful. And you're gonna try to be where the conversations happen. And Bhavna, same thing. Yeah, again, kind of similar trends with all of you. Be where the conversations happen. Nice. Thanks, Randy. Okay, yes, this group, like-minded individuals. All right, awesome. We'll keep typing in the chat. I'll definitely read it afterwards. So I'd like to move on to our last section, expertise. Now, expertise is kind of that extra cherry on top. It combines different aspects of the RAV of RAVE and will allow you to build your influence simultaneously inside and outside the office to give you that big differentiator amongst your peers. So expertise is made up of leveraging LinkedIn, which consists of sharing content, commenting, and networking. Now, why is it important to post on LinkedIn? When you can establish your thought leadership and develop a brand for yourself, you get multiple benefits. You get seen as a leader within a company because you're putting your face out there. When I started doing this, my company asked me to represent them at a media roundtable. I got asked to present at all hands. I had other team members reach out to me to say they looked up to me. So a bunch of benefits, again, both in and outside the office. Outside of work, I got more speaking gigs. I got interviewed on podcasts, and I became a LinkedIn Learning instructor. The company was also happy because anytime I posted, it was organic advertising for the company. So it was a win-win for everyone. And there are many types of content you can post on LinkedIn. I'm just going to share a brief list with you all today to show that there are different options out there for everyone. And before you get nervous about, oh, I have to add posting, to my already busy schedule, don't have to post every day, but it is good to start thinking about which types of content might make most sense for you. So we have text only, text and a link, text and an image, which tends to get 2 times the number of comments. So definitely encourage you all to check that out. Video is one of my favorites. I think I posted one earlier today, actually. Articles and newsletters. Documents, which you can use in a carousel format. So if you are a more visual person, this might be a good one for you. And polls. Now, again, my favorites are probably video and text and an image, but it just really depends what your interests are, what your strengths are. If you like long form writing, maybe the articles and newsletters feature works best for you. Now, in addition to the types of content, there are different categories of content, including personal. So this is usually a nice place to start. You talk about your own stories, maybe what you learned as a new manager, how you negotiated your salary, or why you volunteer for a specific organization. Maybe it's educational. You want to teach your network something, how to be better on video, tips for more effective meetings, how to get feedback. Or professional, so more focus on industry news or trends. And really the ideal, if you can intersect all these 3, even better. So how do we get started thinking through how we might create more of a presence on LinkedIn? we want to turn on something called creator mode. And to turn this on, scroll down on your profile and you'll see an option, something that looks like this, to turn it on. And then you'll see you can add up to 5 hashtags for what you want to be known for. And this is what you also want to be discovered for when people are searching on the platform. Now, with creator mode turned on, you'll notice a few upgrades to your profile. Your connect button becomes a follow button, so you can grow your following faster. You can share up to 5 topics that you want people to know you talk about. Your featured and activity sections will move higher up on your profile. So these are very content-driven features, so they'll be just more visually eye-catching and more prominent on your page. You get early access to different tools like LinkedIn newsletters, LinkedIn Live. And here's a link as well. I think, yep, Denise, thank you, Denise, as well if you'd like to learn more about how to take advantage of the creator tools on LinkedIn. Now, next, I want to talk about an easier way to get started if you're feeling a little intimidated or nervous about posting on LinkedIn. And that is through comments. Now, I've always found comments to be a little bit lower stakes, a little bit lower pressure, but still a really important way for you to get noticed. And it still, in the future, will help any future posts you make in the algorithm. So commenting and how often you comment is a big piece of that. Now, LinkedIn previously, maybe you thought, oh, engagement is the most important. So I have lots of likes. It means that my content is doing well. But LinkedIn actually boosts content in the algorithm depending on how many comments you have. So they're really trying to focus more on conversations versus those more superficial engagement metrics. So when you comment, I want to make sure that you're avoiding the more superficial comments. So instead of, I agree, well said, thanks for sharing, I really want you to show your expertise and to add something to the conversation. So you would instead change this to something like, oh, I agree with you here. I'd also add relationships are key when building influence. Talk to someone you don't normally speak to. Or don't forget to manage up with the leadership team. So you want to aim for at least 15 words that signals to the algorithm that you're adding a comment of substance. Maybe you ask a question. You want to get as much back and forth as possible because, again, more comments will give the post more visibility. It'll give your comment more visibility, and you're certain to pick up some followers along the way. Now, lastly, I want to talk about connecting with others on the platform to build our influence. So I encourage you all to connect with others whose careers you admire and who you might be interested in learning from. Maybe some people in this group right now who you're not connected to. So being connected to the right people will give more visibility to your work and potentially open the door to really interesting opportunities down the line that can help build your credibility and visibility, things like podcasts and speaking gigs. So try using a message like this one to increase your chances of your request being accepted. So you say hello, you introduce yourself, what you do. I've been following your content and found it really valuable as I look to grow my expertise. I'd love to connect with you. Now, if they're not posting content, essentially you just want to make this a personalized message. So maybe something in their career trajectory stood out to you. Maybe you went to a similar university, but you just want to show that you took a little look at their profile before reaching out. Now, this is the very, very important part that people still miss. I talked to someone earlier today who had no idea about this feature. Make sure you are not clicking send. So when you click the connect button, this pop-up is going to appear. Let me see if I can zoom in. Yep. So you're going to see the option to add a note, or you can see the option to send, click send. Click add a note. When you add a note, you can add this in here. When someone receives your connection request, the note will be part of the connection request, making it much more likely that your request gets accepted. And even better, doing this does not use up any InMail credits, and you do not need a premium account to do this. All right, I want to move on to our recap. So to build expertise, we want to make sure we're leveraging LinkedIn through sharing content, commenting, and networking. So we're going to do something a little bit different right now. If any of you can access your LinkedIn URLs easily, would love for you to add a quick line about who you are, maybe throw in one hashtag you might use, or you might add in creator mode, an area of expertise. I think data is probably a hashtag you can all use and add very easily. So add it into the chat, and then also, again, let me know if there's a specific area that we just spoke about that really resonated with you that you want to commit to trying to after we leave the session today. I'm not sure if you're all connected with each other, but hopefully we get a few LinkedIn URLs and we can make some new connections today. And then let me know too what you might want to focus on your LinkedIn. And maybe it's, really back to basics and you want to just clean up your profile first. I know we didn't talk about that today, but that's also a perfectly legitimate thing to do as well with your LinkedIn. So let me know between sharing content, commenting, and networking, or maybe something else entirely, what is most interesting to you. Srileka wants to build your profile. Great first step. Yes, thank you, Melissa. I'm going to click through and add you after this event, or feel free to add me as well. Sue wants to work on networking. Wants to know how to get noticed by more recruiters. Nancy, update your profile. Great. Yeah, really your profile or your LinkedIn is just think of it as your online landing page, right? It's your first online impression. Most people, they won't know your website, but they'll look you up on LinkedIn. So making sure that your presence is really optimized there does go a long way. Kalyani wants to post more often. Great. Yeah, and again with posting, LinkedIn recommends starting off posting 4 times a week to get started, to create that consistency and build that audience. I think 4 times a week is very overwhelming, especially for a new poster. So it's really about consistency. Once a month even, set the bar really low, and then you'll say, oh, okay, once a month is doable, and then you build and build. All right. So I want to recap really quick. So we just covered the RAVE model. We finished relationships, appearances, visibility, and expertise. So thank you so much, everyone, for tuning in, for being so active in the chat. Again, you can connect with me on LinkedIn. I hope you all do. And Denise, thank you for sending my LinkedIn URL. I would also really appreciate any feedback you have to share on the session. Your feedback goes a long way in helping me know what I did well, what I might improve on in the future, and I read every single piece of feedback, so please feel free to share. I'm open to constructive, positive, whatever you have to give. I also have a free weekly newsletter with bite-sized career leadership and management tips with big impact. So if you are so inclined, you can subscribe there. And also I offer occasional discounts on various products of mine as well, if you're interested. And if any of you are interested in bringing me in to speak at your organization or any other groups you're part of, I would be so honored to, and would love for you to reach out, and we can continue the discussion. And with that, I think it's time to enter Q&A.
Thank you, Lorraine. How many of you learned something new today? I know I did, right? So, and I'm actioning it right now. So trying to get on that camera setting, framing properly, and even eye contact. Thank you, Lorraine. This was very, very insightful. So let's look at some of the questions that came in. Again, folks, just feel free to ask your question. If you have something, feel free to interrupt me and ask your question directly as well. So there were a few questions around this whole camera setting, right? Especially when your camera is just sitting right on top of your screen, on your laptop screen. How much leeway do we have making these adjustments?
Yeah, so I get asked that question quite a bit, actually. So my first recommendation would be, if you have a separate monitor, buy an external camera, put it on top of the monitor. That's ideal, so you can see everything a little bit bigger, and you have to squint a little bit less on the laptop. If it is just a laptop camera, that's fine as well. You're going to have to, I'd probably get an external keyboard, because you're going to have to prop the laptop up so you have, again, that eye level camera, and so you're not having to type up like this. I would say get the external keyboard to help with that.
Thank you. What about background?
I did see that question. I wonder if that person was asking about virtual backgrounds. So I'll speak to that. But if that person wants to elaborate a little bit, just please do in the chat. So I always like a really curated background, and that definitely is part of the appearances, right? If someone has a really messy background, you're going to think, okay, this person maybe is a little disorganized, a little messy. So I always like to have some plants and some other, like some candles over here, some nice kind of positive things in the background. A lot of people use virtual backgrounds, and I get asked about those a lot as well. I prefer not using virtual backgrounds when possible. On video, we are already working extra hard to interpret people's facial expressions, to kind of connect like the person with the video, and you're not in the real world, so you're just, or not in person, so you're just trying to kind of put it all together, and it adds a little bit extra strain to our brain. So I think that's part of what contributes to video fatigue. So anytime you have a virtual background, it's just another kind of a natural thing you're adding where maybe, you're moving your hand and your hand disappears. So it's just the human mind having to kind of put all these pieces together. So, unless you have a green screen or just a very kind of good background that allows for the virtual background not to be kind of popping in and out, I would recommend just trying to use your real background. Maria, hopefully that answered your question, but if not, let me know.
Yeah, that was good. Thank you.
Okay, perfect.
Awesome. I don't see any more questions on the chat, but I did have one question. We talked
Okay,
about
yeah.
sharing, right? So I'm always concerned about oversharing, right? So am I just going to hit all the platforms? Am I going to end up oversharing? Or are people going to get tired of it? So just thoughts on that.
Yeah. I think that what we think is oversharing is probably sharing just enough, especially in a virtual space. Again, just because we're getting so much different information from so many different channels and Slack and Teams and so many groups, and it's just, things can get easily missed. So I always think over communication is, a good rule of thumb. I think if you're a little bit concerned or kind of getting self-conscious about it, it's good to maybe find a buddy or another trusted colleague who is in those same channels, and they can give you an honest take like, wow, Sarah, I'm seeing you like kind of a lot. You should calm down a little bit. Or, oh, I'm not, like, it's great. I love getting updates from you. So just finding those trusted colleagues can also be a good way just to kind of get a pulse on how you're coming across. But I think we're all probably just over critical or just over more self-conscious than we need to be, thinking, okay, I'm kind of doing too much. It's probably just the right amount.
Yeah, and that's a great point, right? So because it's the opposite, that's the problem. We don't share enough, but we can sort of be oversharing. So very, very true indeed.
Exactly,
Any other
yeah.
questions, folks? I know this is
Yeah.
not correcting. Okay, I see Maria. Go ahead.
Just a question, because I was trying to do that, become a content creator as you were giving us instructions, but I didn't. And do you have to pay extra for that?
No.
Okay, because
Did you
I
get a
tried doing it and putting my 5 topics and it wouldn't let me save it. So I kept trying to, I was like, okay, I turned it on, put the topics, but it wouldn't let me save. So I must be doing something wrong.
Yeah, that might be a LinkedIn glitch. Honestly, I would maybe try it again in a few hours. If you're still having trouble, just send me a note on LinkedIn. I can try to reach out for the team, to the team on your behalf and see what's going on.
Okay.
But I think it's probably a LinkedIn bug. Yeah. I'm glad you're turning it on though.
Randy?
I have a quick LinkedIn specific questions. It's probably about LinkedIn. So I've been curious. I sometimes see people with very long posts. When I do post when I publish an article in a newsletter, and I always keep them really short, because I guess my thought is I want them to get to the article. But I'm just curious, does the algorithm handle things differently if you write a lot in the platform? Because I've seen these very long posts. I wonder, does that get handled differently than a short post?
I don't think so. I think, again, like what they're really looking for is your content generating conversation. And so, I've seen both really long posts and like a 2-sentence posts do really well. I think there's like a few different factors that go into it depending on the length. You just want to always make sure you have a strong hook to start off, something that will prompt people to click see more and want to actually like engage further. And then of course there's other best practices when you're posting, using a few hashtags, tagging companies and organizations that maybe you're referencing in your content. And then making sure you're not, writing a bunch of text in big paragraphs, but adding a lot of spacing, maybe some bullets or emojis or like numbered things. So all of those things contribute to kind of making things a little bit more digestible for the audience. So, whether short or long, I would just encourage you to include those different things, and just always ask questions too, to invite people into the conversation.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Lorraine. So that's all the time. I'm looking at the time. That's all the time that we have for today. And thanks again, everybody, for attending. And we look forward to seeing you at our next event, which is our Wilda app launch party this Friday at 12:30 p.m. Eastern. Thanks again, Lorraine. That was very insightful and very, very practical stuff that we can act on tomorrow or even this next minute, right? So really, really appreciate you spending the time here with us today and educating us on how to be more influential at work.
Thank you so much, everyone. Great to meet all of you and hope to see all of you on LinkedIn.
Thank you.
Thanks, everybody. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye.